Welcome to the Refugee Workforce podcast. This is Chris Chancey of Amplio Recruiting, and so glad to be joined by my colleague Seye in the UK, really representing the European perspective on refugee employment. And then, of course, we here in the US getting to add in our perspective as well. We just want to hit on several topics that we often hear from companies that we're working with or potential companies that want to hire refugees, and just provide some resource and some hopefully practical insight on the world that we live in and breathe every single day. So Seye, thanks for joining us. The topic for the next few minutes, and I phrase this question in this very specific way, and I'm curious to hear your response. So the topic for us today is, are refugees legal to work?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris, for having me on this podcast. My name is Seye Onabolu, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sona Circle Refugee Recruitment. We're based in the UK. We cover major cities such as London, Birmingham, and Manchester. I also wrote a book on the subject called Refugees Are Here to Stay, Get Used to It. That's available on Amazon. Yeah, I've also got my copy here.
Got it here.
There you go. So
I
yeah.
need to get this one signed by you, by the way. I need a signed copy.
I may have to send that over. But yeah, Chris, thanks for, again, the podcast. But very interesting questions. Question, are refugees legal to work? In the last part, we discussed what refugees are, so the definitions and the categories that they fall into. One thing I mentioned was that the definition and terminology of refugees varies from country to country. It is extremely important, and the right to work is one of the reasons why it is so important. Here in the UK, when people first come into the country without papers, undocumented, they're classified as asylum seekers. And unfortunately, they currently do not have the right to work in the UK. For once they register, even as asylum seekers, after a certain period of time, normally between 12 to 18 months, it could be longer. At that point, they have certain rights to start working, but not before then. I'm currently part of a campaign coalition called Lift the Ban campaign, led by Refugee Action here in the UK. And the campaign seeks to reduce the amount of time that refugees go without, sorry, not refugees, that asylum seekers go without working from 12 to 18 months down to 6 months. The logic behind that is that it makes economic sense. It makes social and integration sense to get people to working, to help them assimilate into the system, to earn a living for themselves and their families, while also supporting the economy, as opposed to being a burden on it. However, once that people do get their the rights right to work, or sorry, their leave to remain, which is the refugee status in the UK, they then have the full and equal rights to work and to benefits and housing and everything else. This point is actually very important because we have conversations with employers in the UK on a daily basis, and these are very intelligent people that work in HR in big companies.
Sure.
And one question we get asked over and over again are refugees legally allowed to work? And the answer is absolutely. Once they have refugee status, they have full and equal rights to benefits, housing, healthcare, employment. In fact, from an employer's perspective, absolutely nothing needs to be done differently in hiring, recruiting, and working with refugees than any normal candidates. So this is a point that I think needs to be shouted louder and to make more people aware of this fact.
Yeah, you're so right about that. I feel that so many companies we're talking with on a regular basis, they're going through a process in the US, of H-1B or H-2B visa process, trying to get workers from different parts of the world and bring them in for a short period of time on a visa. And although that's a great program, the fact that you don't have to navigate any kind of visa processes to engage the refugee workforce is one of the huge perks of employing these individuals. There's so many others, but on the front end, that's one of the incredible benefits. And as you said, I think there are more and more companies, but also more and more people in the general population that recognize refugees and even asylum seekers, not just as individuals who've experienced some major trauma in their life, but individuals who have value to give to the local economy, and seeing them as a workforce and not just those who may be in a position to take advantage of society. So excited to continue to kind of press into this conversation. One of the points on my side is just to reference what the language that we hear in the U.S. often revolves around: is this person legal or illegal? And we often try to help maybe qualify that discussion a little bit by saying there is no person that is legal or illegal. Their status may be put them in a position where they're not authorized or to work yet. So they're unauthorized or they're authorized to work. And we try to drive the language more in that direction. And often that's what it is. It's just providing some education. I don't know that people are intending to be insensitive as much as it's a complex issue. And sometimes the specific words may or may not make sense, but we try to help people recognize, at least in the US, are refugees legal to work? Yes. They are authorized to work, and they're given that authorization very soon after arrival in most cases. We look at the Ukrainian transition to the US as a pretty interesting case, because they were not given work authorization in the beginning. They actually were asked to fill out an application and apply for work authorization, in which they also had to pay $450 into the US government. And they received an automatic email that said, in the next 9 to 12 months, you will have work authorization. Comparing that to Afghans who got a temporary work authorization within a few weeks of arrival. So it does change, but for the most part, authorization is given from day one, and it allows for those individuals to immediately contribute to their local workforce. Any other thoughts from your side, Shay, as we kind of think about legality and the complexity of these individuals joining the workforce, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah, Chris, as you said, it's a complex issue, and I think that's a key point to keep in mind. And it does change and vary from country to country, but also situation to situation. To give an example, in the UK in 2022, there are 5,000 people coming into the country, and over the next 4 years, there would be about 20,000 more people coming in. These are people that have supported the UK government in Afghanistan. Now, due to the specific or unique circumstances of their arrival, they're being welcomed into the country, given accommodation straight away, and also given refugee status, so full and equal rights to benefits, healthcare, housing, and so on. And also people coming in from Ukraine, even if the UK is no longer part of the EU, are also being given rights to work and status to refugee status to get benefits and so on. Whereas in other situations, people coming from other countries may not necessarily get those benefits straight away. So it does vary. It is complex. From our perspective, we always try to work with caseworkers, with the government, to help people into employment where we can. The final point on that, from my side, is I think education and awareness, as you've said, are key. So things like this podcast, whether it's social media, the books, these are all very important, just to make people aware of the facts around the situation.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, these are questions we're answering on a regular basis for companies and HR reps and others within organizations. Happy to do that. So there's a lot of great resources out there that we could point you to, but as well, just happy to be a resource for you. I mean, this is the world we live in. And so happy to walk through how this might affect you and specifically your company or organization. And especially if you are a company that has multiple locations, if you happen to be multinational, and it may be a few of us joining together to provide advice or direction. But love doing that and being able to be of value as there is some complexity. Don't let this be the reason why you don't move forward in the process of engaging and employing refugees and adding this incredible workforce to your team. Let's get these questions answered and allow you and your team to move forward. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully there's some valuable advice here in the last few minutes. We'd love to stay connected, so feel free to reach out via email or to our websites. Grab a copy of one of our books. Refugees Are Here to Stay, with Seye and the Sona Circle team, and of course Refugee Workforce from Amplio Recruiting. Love to stay connected and look forward to continuing to share some insight through this medium with you, Seye. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Chris.